Cue the intro music. We're going live, guys. This is Seb. It's 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. I'm just seeing if my video is going. It is. My video is going live. This is broadcast number 2 of Haystack analyzing reviews. Just checking my audio levels. I sound pretty decent. I got this new microphone. So let's see how many users we got. We were at 3 before. Let's see if we jumped up. No, we're still at 3. That's okay. It's not all about quantity. Sometimes it's about quality, right? We got a lot on our agenda today. So for the next hour, we're going to be taking a look at some Android app reviews. We're going to be focusing in particular on the Trello Android application. I know a lot of product managers out there use Trello for, when they're first starting off. Later on, obviously, they advance to a crazy system. But Trello is a really easy way to organize a project. I use it for things around the house. I use it for business. And it's a system where you can have a system of cards organized into columns. And you can move the cards back and forth. And as you do things or complete things, you can archive the cards. And I assume most people are familiar with Trello. And why did I pick Trello to analyze? Well, for one, they have quite a few reviews. They have at least 5 Android English reviews a day. For 2, it's a pretty popular app. A lot of product managers have used it before, so giving you a familiar reference. If you're on an engineering team, you probably used it before as well. And the other reason is it's a pretty cool application, right? I really enjoy it, and it's always fun analyzing reviews for something that you want to use yourself, right? And analyzing reviews for an application that you don't like as much, it's not as much fun. Like, you get much more passionate and involved when you're like, oh, I've experienced that before, or that's a really good point. That's a good feature request that the team should implement. So let's get this started. And I don't see anybody in the chat just yet, but if somebody is in the chat, I'll try to monitor my phone every once in a while. I think I can even pull this up over here. So I'll try to set a reminder for every few minutes to take a look at this. This is something that I'm working on in terms of my streaming game to make this a little bit easier to look at feedback, your feedback. And just to set the stage, I hope to do this at least once a week. I'm trying to do it, I'm thinking around Wednesdays, around lunch. Again, trying to see who's involved, who likes this kind of stuff, and what's a good time that works for people. It could be Friday at lunches or Friday afternoons, but just trying to build up a little bit of an audience first. And the most important thing is having fun and enjoying it, right? So analyzing bad app reviews or one-star app reviews, it can be humorous, and you definitely can't take it to heart as much as you should. You kind of have to roll with it. So that's why it's fun doing this in a public and open setting and letting people go along for the ride. Usually I'm chuckling to myself for about 20% of the reviews I read. The other 30% I'm just confused. So kind of giving people that type of experience when I'm looking at app reviews and user feedback is cool. And you'll also get to see some of the tools that I've been building. So I've been building some of these internal tools, mainly for myself, and you'll get insight into them as well. So it's 11:06. We'll shoot to go till probably a little bit before noon, then we'll start wrapping up there. I'll plan to make this video available for viewing afterwards. So if you are only able to catch a couple minutes of the stream, you can always check it out afterwards. So let's get started. I'm going to broadcast one of my screens that I use for internal tooling to see and view app reviews. And I'll walk you guys through what you see on the screen. I won't dive in immediately. I think I did on my first stream on Saturday, and I really didn't give anybody a chance to take a look at what are we actually working with. So let me add another screen over here. And I'm getting used to this new streaming software as well. I'm not a veteran by any means. So this is kind of fun for me too. So let's pull up the Trello application. I'm going to pull up the first review, and then I'll explain what you're seeing on this dashboard over here. Give me 1 minute. So screen share, I'm going to broadcast this specific tab for you. And I'm going to send this live. All right. So you see this tab on the screen, and this is my view into the world. This is usually what I look at when I'm looking at feedback. There's a couple of things to take a note here. One is there's this little Android icon on the right, top right, and then I have the little Trello icon. So that tells me what application I'm looking at. I'm looking at the Trello Android application. The second thing that you're going to want to see and notice is the user, right? So this is the username that you'll typically see if you go to the Google Play Store. Every review is associated with the username. For Android reviews, they tend to be more real names, I would say. People's Google accounts, which is what's posted to that store, tend to have something like maybe even like an actual username for I'd say for 80% of them. You could take that first name and last name that most people have and be able to search within your user base to find that user. iOS is a little different. iOS usernames tend to be a little bit more aliases or maybe more comical. Users can change those a lot easier. But that's just something you'll notice for these Android reviews. There's also a rating on the middle of the screen. So that's the number of stars the user gave. In general, users tend to give live or really high ratings, really low ratings. Most people use the App Store as a place to vent or to frustrate or to let their grievances and their frustrations out into the world. Most time when you want like actual user feedback from the 80%, the silent majority, you're not going to find that in the App Store. You can get that through other means, and we can talk about that maybe in future streams. But for this, you're going to get pretty emotional responses in both realms, and you do get good user feedback, right? So even on the 1-star reviews and even on the 5-star reviews, people will say, this doesn't work or that doesn't work, but yeah, you'll get something that's animated, right? People are showing off and venting their frustration or showering you with adoration. I have a button over here that says View in Store, so you'll see a blue button there. That you can click on that, and that will take you to the actual review on the App Store, which is sometimes nice if you want to reply to that review or see more information about it. This Save Tag Changes button, that's an internal button that I have. If you're using this tool or product, you wouldn't see that. That simply allows me to process all of the information on this page and be able to display or be able to save it to the database. Why do I have that? Because I'm using this framework and tool called Retool. If you're familiar with Retool, you might notice on the left side of the screen and the top side of the screen, on the top right, you can see something called Version and Latest, and then you see a little Edit button, and then the left you see a couple of different control panels. So Retool is this great service that I've discovered a couple weeks ago that allows you to build web pages that are suitable for desktop and for mobile as well, and manipulate a database, run queries, and gives you a pretty cool UI visualization. And so using Retool, I built this little button to save all the information on this page to the database. And only I can see this. So only my user can access that button. Anybody else who's looking at this right now is only a viewer. So if you're using this to look at your reviews for your application, you won't see that button. And then right below that, you see that legend over here. So I think there's 24 items on this legend in the middle of the page with all those different colors. So you see the legend, you see more info, RTL, multi-account, widget, missing stars. These are all the different issues that we know of for the Trello Android application. And I think we've analyzed 115 reviews so far. So in 115 reviews, we have over 20 different categories. Some are pretty granular, and some are, you might only have one review. Some are much larger, right? So for something like cannot log in, right? We definitely have seen patterns there of getting 1-star, 2-star, 3-star reviews for that. There's a couple different variations of what users are encountering there, and you'll get a lot more reviews. And today we're going to add more issues, right? So if an issue doesn't fall into one of those buckets, we're going to make a new issue. And likewise, if we find out there's a pattern for maybe there's 2 or 3 different categories and they're really more or less the same category, we can combine those categories. So that's just something to keep in mind. And below you'll see there's the actual text from the user. So there's this text from the user. They say, while editing description in a card and the phone screen times out, all the ratings get lost. And so I think I spoke on Saturday's stream, so day 1 stream, a little bit about this in terms of setting the application's state. And I think I made a issue called card state. So that last issue on the legend you'll see, that's what we're referencing. And so we can highlight all the text or parts of the text to associate them with each one of the reviews. And I'll scroll down a little bit here as well. And there's only one issue associated with this text so far, and that is the save card state issue. And you'll see the text snippet, so the entire text snippet is actually associated with this one issue. If there was 2 issues, which we'll probably see later on, or n issues, we can associate that with the review. And in this case, the user left 5 stars. So there's this lost stars column here, and it has 0. That means that the review, if you were to solve this issue, how many potential stars could you recover from this review? And right now it's 0. So that means that this is a request from the user, but it's not necessarily a most impactful request. Unfortunately, the squeaky wheels get the grease. And if you leave 1-star reviews and you're saying, oh, I really need this particular feature fixed, or there's this bug here, or I need this, and there's 10 of them, that means that there's 40 stars potentially lost of reviews. So 10 reviews with 1 star is 40 lost stars. And so if the developer fixes that one issue for those reviews, those 10 reviews, they could potentially recover 40 stars for their ratings, which could be significantly impactful depending on the number of reviews that you have. And so that's what that lost stars number's there. And you can go in, and I won't go into that, probably not today, but under issue detail, there's a little view button there. And if you click that, that allows you to see all of the reviews associated with an issue. Today, we're just going to have fun, look at reviews, analyze them. But I just want to give you a sense of what you're seeing on the screen. And if anybody else comes in here later, they're welcome to ask questions about what they're seeing. But yeah, let's get started and actually looking at some of the reviews that users have left. And the Trello Android application tends to get quite a few 5-star reviews. So most of them will probably be pretty glowing. And then every once in a while, you get some users that are upset. The last thing that I'll mention before we dive into this next review, so I'm loading up the next review, is all these reviews are in English, or should be in English. That's what the user had set their phone to. And it doesn't initially mean all the reviews will be in English, but this is just a subset of all the Trello Android reviews. They definitely have more reviews, not in English. I usually use Google Translate to translate those reviews, but to be a native speaker, I speak English and Spanish. Being a native speaker is so helpful when you have this limited amount of text that I mean, I can analyze reviews in other languages, but I really don't go to them I didn't go in depth as much as you'd hope for, as if you are a native speaker. So that's one thing to keep in mind. This is only a subset of all the reviews for Trello. So let's take a look at this review from Thomas, depending on where they're from. Probably Thomas, right? This is a 4-star rating. And let's read this out. So it's great to organize basic projects with a team. The app functionality decently mimics the desktop web version. Some clunky and limited UI UX design, platform overall, but not so bad. Needs dark theme though. Wow. Okay, so we're 4 sentences in, and this is a pretty detailed review. Majority of reviews are going to be 1 or 2 sentences from what we've seen so far, but like this user has a lot of feedback. They're very passionate. And so let's break down the first sentence. So it's great to organize basic projects with a team. So this user is using Trello with other users on their team. And that's a great function about Trello, right? Like you have one board, multiple users using it. And then the next sentence, they say the app functionality decently mimics the desktop web version. So Trello has a web version. It's actually it's great. And I use that one actually probably more than the mobile version while I'm at work. But the mobile version is usually what I use while I'm on the go. So this user uses obviously the web version, and they're probably going to compare the mobile app to the web version. And the web version has a lot more features. So that's why they say decently mimics the desktop web version. And then the next sentence they say is some clunky and limited UX UI design overall. So that's a sign for our first issue. So this user doesn't give specific feedback into what's clunky or what's limited on the UX UI design. They hint at it a little bit later with the dark theme, and perhaps even later in this review, they'll dig into that. But this is the first thing that we probably want to tag, and we have a general design issue right here that we can tag this with, and we'll start with that. And these are hard, right? Like you don't know what the user really wants, but you do understand like there's some frustration there. So you're probably going to need to follow up with this Thomas to see what Thomas really wants. But it's a good starting point. And the next thing they say is need dark theme though. And we've seen this from a number of Android users. Dark theme is a new Android capability that came out in the latest Android OS. And this allows applications to have all white screens or a darker theme. And why would a user want a dark theme? Dark theme is helpful for a number of reasons. The first and foremost is there's a lot of new devices coming out with OLED screens. Dark themes could potentially help save significant battery if the user's using dark theme for all their applications. And you can actually set what theme you want. You can set, do you want the standard theme or do you want the dark theme while you're using your phone? And if you haven't had a chance to check out the latest Android OS, iOS has this as well. Definitely check it out. Use different apps with light theme and dark theme, and you can notice a difference. And then the second reason why some users want this is some people just think it looks cooler, right? So instead of staring at a bunch of white app screen real estate all day, like they like that those darker shades. And so this is a more common request that you'll get from Android users. And so we have a general issue called dark mode. So we'll save that as well. And let me take a look to see if anybody has posted anything. Nobody's posted anything yet. If anybody's watching, definitely chat up. I'll take a look at this chat in a couple more minutes and try to respond to any questions that you might have, but let's continue on. And so the user says, besides that, a fairly massive downer is that the notifications suck. So yeah, users are being very candid here. They're not insulting at this point. You definitely there's much more profanity-laced streams, and I can have to take a look at Google's review policy I think you're allowed to curse as much as you want. I'd have to double check that, but you can definitely say this type of information without getting the review banned. We'll go more into like banning reviews later on, but for now we understand that the user's upset about notifications. Should give more info in the shade and have an option for pop-ups. Okay, this is super interesting. Should give more info in the shade and have an option for pop-ups. Options to add cards instead of just creating new. For Android, share shade would also be killer. A few base improvements and I'd probably pay for it. Wow, so there's a lot to unpack here. And so when you're typically scanning reviews, like you probably go pretty fast. Like if you're a product manager or if you're a developer, you're gonna go really fast. You're like, oh, like do I have to read through all this? And when I'm scanning them, I actually go through them pretty quick, even for a larger system like this. But right now I'm talking the reviews out. I'm breaking them down much more slowly. But there's a lot to unpack here. So what actually might help is launching the Trello application. So I have my emulator over here. So let me launch that. I think I can bring that into the screen on the right. This is probably going to fry my CPU loading up this emulator. I assume you should be able to hear me. Let me just check to make sure that my audio has not gone to crap. Okay, yeah, so it's not bad. I've definitely had problems with some other streaming software last week. I fired up the emulator. Let me try to share this with you guys. Actually, let me load up the emulator and try to load up like a blank page. So I think I have some personal boards on here. So give me 1 second. Loading up the Trello application on another screen. Let me open up this test board for you. So let me share the emulator with you guys. Application window, Android emulator. Okay, I see it here. I'll make this a little bit smaller on the right. And then I'll send this live. Oops. Let me adjust that a little bit. My face is hiding it. All right, so you should be able to see my emulator here. And it's working hard to load this page. Let's see if that actually loads up. Maybe it froze. All right, there we go. So I got into this test board. And then it's loading it up. And then I have a test list and test card here. So, I mean, for some of these like tougher reviews, I might go into more depth and actually play with the application and just see like, you know, what is the user talking about here? Because this is pretty detailed feedback. Like we're maybe 5 or 10 minutes in just talking about one review, and like we need to understand like what this user is actually talking about, what they're getting into. So let's go back to the review. So besides that, a fairly massive downer is that notifications suck. Should give more info in the shade and have an option for pop-ups. So what is more info in the shade? Like, is that a typo? Are they talking about like the notification pop-ups up here? Like for actual like reviews? Like, let's actually try to like figure that out. So if we go over here for notifications, these are the in-app notifications. And I have a couple here from a project I'm working on with this Darren guy. And like that's good. Like this gives information in terms of like what the notification or like what the card is, what it was moved towards, and what the board is. But I think the user could also be referencing like you can actually have notifications pop up not only in-app, but also outside of the app in the rich status notification bar. And let's take a look. It should give more info in the shade and have an option for pop-ups. Like, let's take a look at that. I think, like, I guess if I had a secondary user modifying the board, I could be able to trigger notifications on here just to take a look at the notifications that this user is referring to, because it'd be nice to actually see a Trello notification live on Android just to ensure that they have a pop-up. I assume what they're hinting at is that there's different types of rich status notifications. So some notifications just show text, but if you actually click on them, you get launched into the app. But you'll see on this other notification here, right? Like there's buttons here. You can actually take actions. And I assume the user wants more info on this notification here itself. And I assume the user wants to be able to have more actions. When they say have an option for pop-ups, I assume that's what they're hinting at. Option to add cards instead of just creating new from Android share shade would also be killer to add 2 cards. So that second portion is, I think, when the user's sharing something from another application. Let's see if I can mimic that. Let's go in here. I don't think I have anything in my messages yet. It's an emulator. Well, let's try. Oh man. Let's try somewhere to share. In maps. I guess it wouldn't allow us to share to Trello there. Let's go to also helping out a friend with this new news app called Ginkgo. So let's load it up there and testing it out. So let's share this. So we're going to try to share a website, and let's see if we can trigger the Trello intent for sharing. So on Trello, there's add card to Trello, and I assume that will be making a new card as opposed to creating a card. So yeah, that's tough, right? So they want to be able to pick a card that this is added to. And we haven't seen this issue before. So we're going to go ahead and make a new issue. So I'm going to go into my internal database over here. You're not going to be able to see this on the screen, but I'm going to make a new issue. I'll have this refresh on the screen in a second. So we'll call this first issue share add to card. And the issue description will be, user wants to be able to share on Android to an existing card. And then we'll call this like share add to card as like the label. So I just added that on the back end. If I refresh here, you're going to see that right here as this last item. Man, I'm impressed we found such a detailed, rich issue right off the bat. Usually these take a while, right? To get these are the fun ones too, right? Option to add cards instead of just creating new. Share shade would also be a killer. And I'm not sure what shade means. Like, I assume that's just like phone autocorrect, but you don't know. So let's add that one. And then in this case, they want richer notifications. So we should be able to highlight these two sentences and be able to add some info to these notifications. And let's take a look at, we have a notification issue over here, but let's see what is actually on that notification issue. So I'm going into the backend and seeing what is we have for notification. And so notification issues is actually an issue where like users mention notifications never appear or are delayed. In this case, this is not necessarily what the user wants, right? They want a richer notification with more options. And I didn't actually test out the Trello one. I'd probably do that if I had a little bit more time, but just for now, we talked about what we might expect in a richer notification. So let's add a new issue for like rich notification, right? Or called richer notifications. Richer notifications. So I'm going to the back end and adding user wants to see more info on notifications and quick actions. And let's call this richer notifications. So I have this on the back end, and we should see another button pop up that says richer notifications here. And let's add that. And then the last sentence, for this 4-star review, they left so much information, right? They say a few base improvements, and I'd probably pay for it. Now this is super interesting, right? Well, what does this mean? Trello has a couple different pricing models. You can pay for power-ups, I believe, but I don't know if there's like I have to double check Trello pricing. So I'm pulling that up on a different tab, but like this is like, what are they talking about? Like this is just confusing. And so I know they have the gold edition, and then they have the business class edition, but like if they add that, like why would the user pay, right? Like what are they going to get out of it once they start paying money? Like they get so much out of this free version. Like, are they paying just for, they're paying just to say like, hey, I would love to pay just to support you guys for all the good stuff that you do for me so far? Or like, this doesn't really make that much sense. And so like, how do we classify that type of feedback? I don't know. I mean, we could just ignore it altogether, right? Because it's not really a feature request. It's not really a bug. But it could be helpful, like, the user hinting that they want to pay for something. I would probably chalk this up to, I mean, this is a default category, but it's called more info. And usually I put things in there I'm not really too sure about, right? Like, maybe we need to ask the user more questions, or maybe something's a little bit more ambiguous. And as we go further along, maybe we'll formalize a category there. But usually we need to follow up with what the user is asking for. And I would chalk this up to more info for now. So like ideally it'd be nice to talk to the user and see what they want. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separate tagged issues off of one review. That's a lot of information. And if you need to scroll through issues like every day and every week, like that takes a lot of time to do this. And obviously we did this really slowly. We were belaboring the points and trying to walk through them. But I mean, holy crap, that's a lot of information, very dense. And so we tried to break it up into different categories. The thing that we want to do, though, is the most important thing. So we have these 4 stars that the user assigned to the review. We need to pick out which review gets the lost star. So what does that mean? We have the 5 different issues. We need to pick out the issue that if we were to resolve this, what issue would actually get that lost star that the user is complaining about? Sure, I can move to fractional stars in the future. I could say each review is worth 0.2 stars, and maybe I'll do that in the usage. I mean, that sounds pretty logical, right? If we're doing this mathematically, but for now, I'm trying to assign, like, this is the most important thing for the user. And if we were to fix, of all the 5 issues, if we fix this one issue, we could potentially recover that lost star. The other 4, it's good feedback, but it's not as, not as weighted as highly. And obviously, usually I pick longer issues for the star. So like the ones that the user may give more credence or weight to. So the dark theme is in bold or in capitals, so that could mean that the user really wants it. But I think the rich notifications should be the 1 star, right? It's the longest one. They used a lot of U's in the word suck. So how many U's is that? That's 4 U's. I think that outweighs capitalization for the needs dark theme. So I would give richer notifications that 1 lost star. So I currently don't expose this in the front end in terms of being able to assign the lost stars. I currently do this in the back end, but I'll probably have some visual interface in the future for this. I just haven't gotten around to it. So let's see, that's the 3rd issue, I think, has the lost star, and the rest have 0. So I'm just entering this into the back end. And let's refresh here, and then we should see the lost stars appear. Yeah. Oh, that's not the right one. So 1, 2, 3. So this is the richer notifications one, and I can double check my back end. So richer notifications is issue number 40. And let's see, feedback issues. Let's swap those out. Also a nice thing to move out to the front end, it's a little easier to see what it modifying. Just modifying some 0s and 1s over there in the back end. That's a little easier to read. Okay, so it's 11:40. I think we spent 20 minutes on one review. That was a tough one. That wasn't easy by any means. So we'll probably move to something a little simpler and go to the next one. Let me check my stream. Looks like we have another viewer. If anybody wants to chat, you're welcome to dive in and ask a question. The chat should be, if you're on the desktop of YouTube Live, it should be on the top right. If you're on mobile, I believe it actually just shows up right below the video. So feel free to say something, and I'm happy to call out. We can talk about if you have an app that has a 1-star review, we can take a look at that one. Or if you have any questions about what we're up to, feel free to chime in as well. So let's go to the next review. Finally, right? Hopefully it's an easy 5-star, and we can just classify this and move on. So yeah, very useful 5-star review. So nothing really much to do here. We do want to tag, if there's like an amazing 5-star review that's like multiple sentence long and they're just gushing over the application, we want to tag that for the developer. So we want the Trello team to know, like, this is like a reviewer that loves you. And if it's just like 2 sentences or a couple words, like, you probably don't care as much. This is an outstanding app to manage works, even the daily routine. Okay, so that's a 5-star. We'll go on to the next one. And I could sort it out and look only at 1 through 3 stars, for example, or 1 through 4 stars and just focus on those. But I do like looking at the 5-star ones as well. It does give you some objectivity, right? When not all reviews are bad, right? A lot of users love your application. So this is from C. Smith. It's 1 star from October 24th. And this is a pretty long review. Sometimes, again, you'll usually only get a sentence or 2. Like, this user is pretty passionate about the application just by the length of it. And let's dig into this one. So I'm an early adopter of this app, and to say it has been degraded to a garbage app. Whoa, they're coming in with fire on that first sentence. So not only have they, like the user's so personally invested in this application, like they probably don't even pay for it, but they love it so much that they they're treating it as like their not like their ungrateful child, but like they know this app so well, like they just know it's garbage now. I'm sure they use it every day, right? There is no clear way to create a board, delete and reopen a board after deleting it. That could be valid. We'll experiment that with the mobile. I assume there isn't a way to do that on mobile. I think there's a way to unarchive a board on desktop pretty easily. There might be a way to do it on mobile, I'm not sure. It has one option, create card. The board menu doesn't allow you to reopen a board. So I assume that it has one option, create a card, is harping on the previous issue that they're having. Like there's only one thing you can do. You can't you can't. I assume that's not a separate issue, but we'll take a look at that. So the board menu doesn't allow you to reopen a board. The UX of this app is shameful. So Trello Android team, man, like this person could come in and this C Smith could come in and give great wireframes and create great mocks for your application. UX team, we're gonna have to talk to C Smith to figure out what's going on, and to understand how in this day and age of Google Suite products, how a company can have no idea now to make an application easy to navigate without much need of documentation. Whew, that was a good run on. Yeah, this user is obviously venting, right? Like we don't know if they're using it for personal or for business. We don't know if they're a paying user or not. They say they've been using it a long time. Just based off this, we have no way to verify that. Obviously, we want to do some deeper research. We'd probably want to find this user in our database to just find out some background about them if we could, just to see who they are, like what's their deal. But man, they are pretty upset with this application. So let's dig in and let's try to help this user out, right? Let's see what they might want, what they might need. So they're an early adopter of this application, and has degraded to a garbage app. I wouldn't tag that with an issue. That's just for frustration. But like there's nothing actionable there, and like we could give it more info, but they definitely give more information later on. So let's focus on that. If they just said it was a garbage app, I would probably tag it with more info, but they give specific reasons. So there's no way to create a board, delete it, and reopen a board after deleting it. Like, okay, let's talk about this, right? So as a user, and when you're analyzing reviews, you have to put yourself in a lot of different mindsets. Obviously, putting yourself in the user mindset is the first and foremost, but putting yourself in like the developer's mindset, the quality assurance mindset, the product manager's mindset, everybody's mindset is important. But in this case, like, let's say you've worked on this board for a long time, maybe you accidentally deleted it, and you want to be able to reopen it, right? Like you put all this work into it. Like I could see, yeah, user getting really frustrated if there is no way to reopen it. But let's test this out really fast before we speak too much. I don't think I've closed a board on the Trello Android application, but definitely on web I have. Let's pop into it. So we got the Trello application over here, and like when they talk about a board, right? So there's lists, there's cards, and then there's larger board, right? So I got my own personal board here. It has a cool picture of kiting when I went kiting, and like this is this test board. So let's try to close, or let's make a new board, right? So they say there's no clear way. We'll call this board delete me, and then let's delete this board. So we'll go in maybe under board settings. You can close the board, right? So under board settings, close the board. This board has been archived. So we can reopen it. There's our board. But let's try to, and maybe the user is like talking about cards. I don't know. Like when they say board, maybe they're referring to something else. I assume they're referring to a board, not a list or not a card. You know, let's just presume that this is what they're really talking about. So we'll close the board. We'll head out of that board, and voila, like where did that board go? Like, don't see it. So that's probably what the user's talking about. Is there another way where we can go in here? Can we see in like home? Can we see like the past boards or the highlights? Sometimes they have that. This is highlights. This is some of my other applications. Nope. My cards. Settings. Open system. Select boards for offline viewing. No. Delete account. So yeah, this could be legitimate feedback. Like I'm not finding this within a minute. I'm sure a user wouldn't spend longer than that trying to find something out. And let's see if we can find this card. So you can find an old board by searching, right? So you can search for it. You can go in there, and you can reopen it. Okay. But the user says this, right? There's no clear way to create a board, delete it, and reopen it. So they have a point, right? We had to spend 30 seconds searching it. We found it out. I'm a mobile developer. Like I know, typical user experiences and use cases. So I probably knew to look there, right? If I had to guess. And so yeah, like the user's confused, right? So there's a couple different ways we could play with this. There is an issue called help. And so other issues that we put in there are trying to help the user understand, like, they're like, oh, there's no way to do this. And essentially they need some information. And if we were to look at this issue in the store, let's click on this right here. I'm sure the Trello team responded to them. Trello's actually really good. They respond to almost all their reviews. Well, they didn't respond to this review. Interesting. But the Trello team historically has responded to most of them. And I've noticed of the 115 reviews I analyzed, 95% of them were actually really, really good responses. 5% could have used a little bit of help, and actually emailed the Trello team about those 5 responses. But it's a really good hit rate, especially if they're trying to process these really fast. And we're taking so much time just thinking about it. But yeah, in this case, I would probably say the user needs more help. Like, so I would tag that as like follow up with this user, let them know that there is a way to do this. The items and more help could probably also be helpful to the product team, right? So that's letting the product engineering team know, like, these users don't understand how to do this functionality, or there's no like easy way for them to do it. And yeah, they could be edge cases, and they could be not so common functionality, so maybe you don't want to expose it as easily. But like, you also need to think about it too, right? Like, for all the things that the users are asking for help on, or they have to go like Google something, like, maybe there is something you could do to help them out. I don't know off the top of my head. Like, maybe there's like a better way to have like all your history. Maybe there's like a snack bar that remains for undo for like 30 seconds. I'm not sure. Like, I can't make that decision right now, but we definitely know that this user needs help. So we'll mark this as help. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the next sentence. So the UX of the app is shameful to understand how understanding product suites, how a company can have no idea how to make an application easy to navigate without much need of documentation. All right, so there's a couple different categories you could put this user into. So we have this beginner category for, some users have complained on previous reviews, like, hey, I'm a beginner, like, I don't know where to go, I need some help. But this user, I don't think they're a beginner user, because they said they're an early adopter of this app. They say it's degraded. Maybe historically they're able to reopen boards without issue, right? And in that case, like, I'd probably, I could chalk this up to some design feedback. It's not very specific enough, so it verges on the territory of more info. But I'd probably send this to the design team just for them to like feel like the pain, right, that this user has, and yeah, like how helpful is it? You know, maybe they want to follow up with that user, but like this is a general design issue, right? Like the user expects something to be able to happen very, very easy for them, and it's not. So they give 1 star. I would probably give both of these issues two lost stars each. So I'll open up my backend over here, and let me add that here. There are 2 lost stars. So go to the application. And we should both have 2 lost stars. Okay. So how many reviews did we look at today? 4? Wow, this is probably my old-time low. But I was having fun talking them out loud and kind of showing you maybe a slower paced view into my life reading reviews. And this is what I do every day. I go in and I read lots and lots of app reviews. Well, not even app reviews too. I read other types of reviews. And I try to think of ways of making this information, actionable, help like the app creators understand like what their users are going through, and like I have a level of objectivity too, right? So I'm this other person. I don't always work directly at these companies that I'm helping out, and so like if you're working on this 12 hours a day, like you probably take all this stuff pretty personal. And you have to have pretty thick skin to be able to handle this. But for me, like we kind of joke about it, laugh at it a little bit, analyze it, and move on. So we're at probably a little bit better mental state to have some actionable insights in terms of what people are thinking about. But we'll probably start wrapping it up. I see a couple reviewers or users in here. If you have any last questions, feel free to say something in the chat. Otherwise, I'll probably start talking about what we plan to do next week. So next week, I'm open to anything that you might be interested in. I'll plan to continue taking a look at some more Trello Android reviews and stay on that topic. But if there's something that's really meaningful or insightful for you, or you want to explore a different topic in the feedback space, I'm happy to address that. Some stuff that I looked at over the past week, I wrote an article on in-app reviews for Android, and I did a teardown of this experimental functionality that's not yet released. So definitely check that out on my blog on haystackreviews.com. And what else am I planning? I've been working on a review library application, so you can test out all these different review libraries that are out there on GitHub for Android. I've been working on getduck.com on that. So I've been trying to stream maybe an hour a night. And it's more Android application development, so that's probably more interesting to Android developers instead of maybe a general audience of product managers and engineers and maybe QA or support that might be more interested in this type of content. But stay tuned for that application to come out hopefully in the next week or so. So I've been working that on my part-time. But other than that, feel free to reach out. I'll leave my contact info in the stream, I guess in the stream description once I end this, and I'll make this a video that you can check out afterwards. And yeah, hope to be around the same time next week. I'm planning Wednesdays around lunch. Maybe I'll start at noon. But yeah, I'm trying to find out what works for you guys, and what what you're interested in seeing and what you're interested in talking about. Hopefully this was entertaining. I definitely get a kick out of it. And yeah, hopefully we have a chance to stream next week and get some more feedback. Take care. This is Seb from Haystack Reviews, and same time, same bat channel on Wednesday.